Hey guys, it's Caroline from newhorizoncoaching.com.au, career coach and job search strategist. So here to help you out with any resume reviews that you might need, or resume coaching, interview skills that you need to really desperately master for this job that you're applying for, negotiation techniques, job search strategies, and so on, or to help you find the career you want. Anyway, I had an interesting question today, and you know, when you're doing your job for a long time, you sometimes forget actually the basics, and that was me today. So I was actually talking to somebody about their resume, and they said, like, what are the key elements that I need to have on my resume so I know I'm going to stand out from my competition? And I said, oh, I know that. That's an easy one. So typically there are 5 key elements, and I'm going to reveal all 5 elements to you, but I'm also going to tell you and share with you why it's important that those 5 elements work together. Because if they don't work together, it's like reading a book that doesn't really connect, and all the chapters are there, but it's like one chapter talks about this and the other on that, and there is no correlation and there is no thread around in the resume. And that's exactly what you need to create with your resume. It's like this message that you want to tell. Now, historically, a resume was just like a bunch of skills, responsibilities you have done, maybe a couple of achievements, and that was it. And you knew you would be able to tell your story once you actually came to an interview and you had the chance to really connect with the person. Now, times have changed, and your resume therefore needs to change also with it, because job searching has become very competitive. With a touch of a button, you can apply from anywhere in the world. With technology, you can Skype, FaceTime, video conference, and hire somebody that is qualified that you didn't even knew existed back in the UK or in America or in New Zealand, Australia. It doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like, it's become the landscape of job searching has changed. And you have to change with it, otherwise you're going to struggle. If you're going through traditional methods of finding a job, you're going to say like, oh, it's not happening, I'm not getting the traction that I used to have. So that's why these 5 elements are really important. And if you want to download my free resume template, you get a checklist with those 5 elements with it. So what I always recommend people to do is to put your resume next to the checklist and see, like, is everything really present that needs to be there? And if not, then what do I need to change to make it work, make all the elements present? So, all right, so first of all, you have your career statement. I call it your career statement. Some people call it their career summary. Others say like it's your elevator pitch, executive summary. Doesn't matter how you call it. It's basically the first 8 to 10 lines on top of your resume that need to be there and that set the tone. It sets the tone to explain to the reader what they can expect reading the rest of your resume. So it tells them how many years experience you have, what areas of expertise you have, or what added value you can offer, the stakeholders you have worked with, because that actually accentuates your seniority. And it gives also the opportunity to talk about your collaboration with rest of the team or senior executives, shapes depending on how you want to position yourself. And it also offers the opportunity to talk about that you're really good in building teams if you have, coaching them, leading them, and so on. So you have your career statement. So it's about 3-4 paragraphs, each 1-2 lines, very brief, not more than 10 lines in total, because you do not want to have a resume that's too text heavy. Okay, moving on. The second element. The second elements are your key skills or your expertise. Now, these ideally, visually, you represent them in 2 columns. Why you do that is to break up your resume and to make it really easy for the reader to read your resume. So 2 columns, each of 4 to 5 bullet points, and you talk about the key skills you master. Now, check this out. This is really an easy way to think about it. You have to think about your career statement is the promise you make to a company about what you can deliver. And the key skills is basically the skills you need to master to deliver on that promise. Told you it was rocket science. Anyway, so you think about the key skills that you master to deliver on that promise. Then the third element is your key achievements. Now, most people freak out here. They say, oh, I don't know my key achievements, and oh, I can't write, and what do I put? And key achievements are not things that you won the Nobel Prize. Those are simple things about tasks you have done and the results you have achieved doing those tasks. So the best way to look at it is this. You have your career statement. Then your promise you make. You have your key achievements, which are basically the skills you need to master to deliver on that promise. And then you have your key achievements that are basically the proof you mastered those key skills that deliver on the promise. And that's actually in the beginning of this video, I told you how important it is to really connect all the elements. This is part of the connection and part of the flow that you're creating. So, and that is your personal brand, and that is your packaging up all your skills and experience to making sure it flows. Because most people, they get pretty much the layout right, but they don't get the content right. And the content needs to just connect all the elements together. Okay, so we have 3 elements. The fourth element, of course, is your career history. Now, with career history, it's very important, of course, to mention a company and a little bit of explanation who they are. Whether they're known or not, it doesn't matter. Just one line of explanation. People like to paint a picture of what the company actually does. And then, very, very important, what most people forget altogether, is your mandate. The reason, your remit, the reason they hired you in the first place. The reason why it is important, there's a lot of reasons, is because you can have worked for a big multinational, but you might have launched a department and you could have no budget whatsoever. So the way you operate is very different than when you're part of a team of hundreds and have to actually work and collaborate with all of those 100 team members to actually deliver on a project. So neither way is better. It just needs explanation. So you have your company title, you have your company, then your title, and then you have a little bit of explanation of your mandate. So you might say I was hired to increase the revenue of the company, or to streamline the organization, or to actually maximize processes or efficiencies, and so on. So you actually give a little bit, 1 or 2 lines only, of just explanation of what it is that you did there, and the team you have worked in, maybe the direct reports you had, maybe also the person you reported into. You can easily say, like, was hired as a marketing director, reporting directly into the general manager and the board to do blah blah blah. So it's really gives a little bit of explanation. It paints that picture for people, and then you go into your responsibilities. Now, or key achievements, wherever you can actually list any numbers, it's always good. But some people are in some jobs that they don't have any tangible numbers, and it doesn't matter, but you achieved a certain result. So think about the result you achieved doing that particular job, because otherwise it's just like a job description. I'll give you an example. If I apply for a recruitment agency and I say recruiter, people know what a recruiter does. Hiring managers would know the responsibilities of a recruiter, but they don't know how I recruited and what results I achieved, whether my strength was in talking to hiring managers and getting really difficult stakeholders on board and getting the buy-in, or whether it was really like a very quick fill rate that I had, and just like, give me a position and 24 hours later you have your candidates. Like, there is a difference, and a lot of people don't articulate that in their resume. So that is element number 4. And the 5th element, and it's not because I mentioned this last, that is the least important. It's equally important. The 5th element is all your other stuff. It could be your languages, it could be your education, and it could be technologies specifically that you know. This is a note: if you're an IT professional, some of the technologies that you know might actually be listed in your key skills that you mentioned in the beginning of your resume. Now, a question that a lot of people ask me is like, where do I put education? Do I put it in the beginning? Do I put it in the end? And to be honest, it really depends. I know you don't want to hear this, but hear me out. In Australia, for example, the emphasis on education is a little bit less in general than, for example, in the US or even in Europe. So education tends to be at the end of the resume. However, I recruited in Europe, and people would tend to put it at the end also. If I have 10 years of working experience or more, and I'm not going to be hired for the fact that I have a bachelor degree in blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be hired for my expertise that I have at the moment and the skills that I have. Nor am I going to be paid because I have like a bachelor or a master or a PhD degree. Like, it's all relative. So you have to think, like, if it's more than 6 years ago, then you might want to move it to the back of your resume because it might actually lose its value. Same with languages. Like, in Europe, it's very important, languages. In Australia, it tends to be a little bit less, to be honest. If I say I speak fluent French and Dutch, then they say, so what? That's a nice to have. Good on you. You might be able to talk behind my back in another language, but that's as far as it goes. Unless the job specifically requires me to talk other languages, it's really something that that's not relevant. So you have to really make yourself a little bit acquainted to the role you have and the job that you're applying, and then you have to see the country you're in, and is education really important for the organization. Maybe mention it on the top, but like, if it is important, people will look at the whole resume altogether anyway. So whether it's in the beginning or in the end, it doesn't really matter. It's more like open with a bang and just make a woof like entrance, a grand entrance that people say, wow, and you do that by writing a powerful career statement. And then you go into the skills. So what you tend to do or try to achieve with your resume is that people keep on reading because they're so excited. And in terms of listing information, because a lot of people say, oh my God, I have so much to list, I have so much skills and experience and blah, 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 which is all understandable. And a lot of people are struggling with the same thing. But think about it like this. A trailer of a movie gives you a snapshot of whatever it is, and you want more. So what do? You go and see the movie. So that's exactly the same what you want to do with your resume. You want to give a snippet. You want to give a snapshot of what it is that you can do. You want to excite them, because that's how you're going to get the interview. When they are excited and they say like, this person can solve my problem, can add the value that I'm looking for, can make me sleep at night, because at the moment I'm not sleeping at all. So, and that is what you want to try to achieve with your resume. So I hope this makes sense. Please give me any feedback if suddenly a light bulb went up and you say, now I understand why it's so important, because I would love to know. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Also, there's a couple of things. If you want to be notified of live videos like this, because during live streamings, you can just ask me a question and I will answer to you on the spot. How is that for feedback? Like, most people are struggling to get any kind of feedback, and I'm just offering it to you. And I say, like, I'm an executive recruiter with over 12 years experience, and you can just on an evening at 7 o'clock in the evening, you can just type in, Caroline, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me? That's it. It has to be, of course, career or job search related. Otherwise, I can give you my opinion, but I'm not sure how helpful it will be. Anyway, I'm going off track here. Thank you so much. I'm really enjoying these videos. I hope you do too. Share and let me know some feedback, because I don't know what you're thinking. Maybe you're thinking, look, she lost it a little bit. It's just fine. I'm still enjoying myself. All right. Bye-bye.